All right. So, all right. So today we're looking at improving decision making and managing knowledge. And so we all know, I hope, that computer information systems can, if designed well, lead to improved decision making. If you remember, some weeks ago, we talked about decision support systems, executive support systems. Well, we also talked about management information systems, which are basically for general reporting. And all of them can help with decision making for different managers, I mean, for the operational managers, the middle managers, and the senior slash executive manager. So we're going to spend today talking about how we can use information for better decision making and for other purposes in an organization. So if um, there are many kind of decisions made in an organization, some are routine and others are non-routine essentially. And if they're made well, they can add up to savings slash increase income for the business. So the example, I was just at a physiotherapist in the last couple of days, and the physiotherapist was telling me, because for some reason I was talking about my telecom provider and asking him what telecom provider he used at his business. And he was telling me a little story about that. I won't say which provider because that's not really part of the story. A particular provider actually came and said, why don't you consider using, and since at the time he was having a problem with the other provider going on in Jamaica, we only have to do this and flow, he said, okay, go ahead. And then they came back and said, oh, well, actually, we don't have the, whatever it was, something was not available that would cost them so much money. So after they offered him the service, then they said, oh, well, actually, it would cost us so much money, so we're not, no can do. Now, clearly, the decision to actually literally, I don't know if the person came in person or call, but they actually made that marketing effort to try to sell him something and then realizing that it did not make sense for them. Clearly, they were not making sensible decision making. So the question is, can a business put in place information systems that they don't make that kind of mistake that particular telecom? Because if you made a mistake a lot, it can add up to a lot of money. So here are some examples of how information systems can enhance decision making. So it could be that, in general, there's a thing called the 20/80 rule that in general, 20% of anything, not just customers, 20% of something leads to 80% of the results. So if that's the case for customers, as in the top 20% of customers lead to 80% of profits or 80% of sales, or whatever the exact rule is, it might actually be in one particular business, it might be 18% leads to 78%. Those rules are not to be precise. The point is, if you are able to identify clients in an organization that lead to outcomes that you want, if you allocate support to those people, you can actually make more money. So that's give an example, which every single month you could essentially make good decisions that lead to increased income. Predicting the call center demand daily. So if it is that when people have to wait too long for service on a call, it makes them either like stop buying from that place or being disgruntled and telling other people that they shouldn't use that particular thing, it can be problematic. So if you actually put up the call center management, if you sort out the call center in a way that is conducive for business, then it could be that you save money, make money. If you're a company with inventory, you need to decide what inventory. So if you're a place selling car parts, for example, let's say Burt's, how many parts should they have in stock? in any particular time. If they have too much inventory, it's going to cost money that they could have making money in the bank. If they have too little, somebody says, oh, I'm not going to use Burke, I'm going to go to another place. So that will also lead to either cost saving or increased profits or both. If you're looking at a business deciding who to buy from, if you have the information so that you're actually choosing the right supplier, that can, then let's say that's only taken once a year, that can actually save you money, right? So you actually make the purchase from the best supplier. And if you're a manufacturing manager, trying to decide when you're going to have the production schedule to fill orders of the business, there might be annually 150 decisions, and if each of them is worth 150,000, and in each of the decisions is worth that much, and the annual cost. So the whole point is, this is how often per year. So different kind of decisions are making different amount of times, and they have value to the firm. And if you can have a computer information system that can lead to better decisions, you can either increase income or increase or decrease expenses, which can be good. So there are three kinds of decisions: unstructured, structured, and semi-structured. The first two are maybe the most obvious. So we're all accustomed to structured decisions, which are taken routinely. Usually most structured decisions doesn't need a computer, except that when there's so many to be made, it makes sense to have some kind of bot to make it, because it's just time consuming for a human. Unstructured decisions are ones that are really tend to be pretty important and are not well understood, and decision maker needs a lot of judgment to solve a problem that's usually important. Semi-structured is one that doesn't have a clear-cut answer, but there is an accepted procedure to lead to that. So for example, if your business in the let's see, if your business with providing, what's the right word for that? Providing what's the group of, when you sell the groups of stocks together? There are two names. Anybody knows?
You're talking about shares?
No, man. When a business sells groups of stocks together, there are two names. Not a share. When you sell groups of stocks, as in you can go in and you buy a group of stock at a financial institution like a Marisa or JMB or whatever. So you're not buying one type of stock, you're buying a group of them. There are two terms, I can't remember either of the names. Nobody here knows? Peter Ray?
I'm not sure if it is index. Not sure.
It's what?
Portfolio.
No, man. Portfolio is when you might make a decision to buy several stocks yourself, and then you have a portfolio, which could be of stocks and it could be of other kind of things, stocks, bonds, etc. My head was floating by. I see nobody here knows the term. Anyway, let me just explain the concept and move on with what I'm trying to say. So there are companies that sell, let's call it a portfolio of stocks, and they have a name for this particular product. And then that particular company has to decide what stocks and bonds that they're buying. Their basic principles as to decide what stocks and bonds to buy, but there's no clear-cut answer as to which ones to literally buy. They're principles. So there are principles that decide how to buy stocks, but which ones you actually buy is not. So anything, whether you're the individual or the company buying stocks and bonds, they're structured ways, but what is the best answer is not so clear. So many decisions are semi-structured. So this is generally what happens in a firm. We actually covered this weeks ago. So this is a what do you call this? A repeat. So we had said already that generally in larger firms, there are 3 levels of management, and the operational management team make structured decisions. So examples are on the screen. determine whether somebody should be assigned overtime, whether it's time to restock the inventory, like, and that could be very simple. Either every time it gets below 5%, you restock, whatever. There's a formula, it's a structure, or whatever the exact in that company, where they should offer credit to customers. So maybe this is specifically either you look up and see that they have a good credit score, or that they've been in business with you for more than a year, whatever. There's some specific rules as a structure. It's only structured if the rules are very clear and you just follow the exact rule. You know, it could be that if their income is more than this and that and those things, those are structured decisions. If you determine special offers to customers, and that could be structured. So, in fact, even with this thing about offer credit to customers, offer credit to customers could be structured and semi-structured. So there could be some cases where if the people meet certain criteria, they're automatically offered credit, and the other people put into a semi-structured thing where they decide these people are a gray area, make the middle managers decide whether to offer credit to those customers, and then some other people are just automatic no. So some of the semi-structured decisions in a company is designing a marketing plan, designing a budget, and coming out with a website. All of those are non-trivial, and some parts of the structured, some not so structured. And then executive management are going to make big decisions that are completely unstructured. Strategy, as in long-term goals, is very important, but you want to take particular products and services and either enter them or leave them for the whole firm, whether you're going to go to a new location or close an existing location, whether you're going to decide to invest in particular types of capital. All of those are really unstructured decisions. So with decision making, you go through intelligence, design, choice, and implementation. So intelligence is you say identify what problems there in the organization. And for those who are looking at this and going, why is discovering problems intelligence? If you don't know that there's a problem, you'll never be able to make good decisions. Then you have to look at what are all the possible problems, choose between them, and then implement. And really key in this part is monitoring how that solution or the tentative solution is working, because if it's not working, then you need to go back and get an alternative and then implement that to see what works. So these are the 4 options here in the stages, and basically going through this, and it can be iterative depending if the implementation doesn't go as planned, you go back up to each of these particular steps. So there are some routine decisions that can be automated, where humans are eliminated, where just a computer algorithm does it, because there's a pre-range of acceptable solutions that managers can monitor, can control. And one example here is just buying and selling. Like, for example, on electronic, I don't think, as far as I know, we actually are going towards electronic stock exchange right now. But the whole stock exchange right now is not completely electronic. So some is electronic and some is manual. What in the US, for example, where you have the entire stock market being electronic, essentially as soon as a trader indicates they want a part of the indication that you want to sell at a particular price, as soon as there's a buyer who wants to buy, the actual transaction takes place in an automated way. Can anybody think of any other decision making that would make sense to be applied in this way?
Come again, miss?
Can you give me any other example where it would make sense to eliminate humans from the decision making? To use computers to make a decision?
You have some fast food chains who actually use instead of persons taking orders, like you have the computer that can do that for you.
Instead of people doing what?
Taking orders, the computer does it for you.
Taking orders? What kind of orders? I'm kind of confused.
In regards to some restaurant chains, so you know
Uh,
that you have human mistakes, so you can get the wrong order when you use the computer. You have a less chance of making errors.
I'm still puzzled. So let's say I wanted, like today I had a chicken salad, literally I had a chicken salad for lunch today. Who is not going to do what? Because I need to indicate that I want a chicken salad. There were 3 meals. There was a dessert, 3 entrees, and an appetizer. How would the computer know that I wanted a chicken salad? So
For
please explain.
example,
I wasn't following you.
for example, you know, you have like someone to take your order when you're making an order at a restaurant.
Mhm.
Now when you have the computer, now you input your orders, you don't have to talk to anyone. And you know that sometimes misinterpretation, so the person might give you a wrong order or whatever, but the computer won't do that.
Oh, so you
because-
mean the cashier? Why?
yeah, something like that, like a virtual
That's
order
something not being
assistant.
clear. It's really not being clear. So you're saying that you could eliminate the cashier or okay, could eliminate the teller, whatever, teller or cashier from the, because there are 2 steps of whether it's face to face or whatever. There's the, yeah. I guess that must be in person, because if it's online, you wouldn't have that kind of person. So you're saying in a face to face setting, which is how I dine today, instead of having the way to take my order, there could be some way that either on an app or on a tablet or whatever, I could have made my order, and then the waiter then delivered it. That's what you're basically saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah, that's
basically
true, but
saying.
that's not really a high velocity automated decision. So something more high velocity would be, I don't know, right now I want to buy a Fitbit, which is a particular type of pedometer to measure my, it's not a pedometer. I want a smartwatch that would measure my things related to my fitness and my sleep. And once I decide what, in fact, let me go back to this. Once I decide, this is not back to me as an individual. Once I decide what Fitbit I want, but there are many types, which is a semi-structured decision. Once I decide which one I want, I could buy that Fitbit from many places, both face-to-face and online. Here's my question now, how could you have high velocity automated decision making to decide exactly where I buy that Fitbit from? Now I've decided specific specific one, but there's like, let's say there's about 10 of them on the market right now, and I've not decided what exact version of the Fitbit that I want. But maybe nobody's following me, but basically you could have a bot, like basically looking online, because maybe Amazon is the cheapest place where I can buy that particular Fitbit, but maybe there's somewhere else that I can get it less expensive. So a high velocity automated decision making would be something that can just essentially go through every single website for me and then say, yeah, here's the Fitbit, here's the 3 cheapest one, and then I could decide. That would save me time. And business can do the same thing. We're going to got examples here where a business could say, yes, I want to find the lowest supplier that's selling this particular product. So your example is an example of using computers to automate, but it's not a high velocity automated decision making process in my opinion. Mr. Palmer, you see where I said that?
Come again?
I said, do you see where I'm saying? I don't see how
Oh yeah,
it's not high velocity.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. Right. So decisions and decision making, if they're high quality, they're accurate, comprehensive, fair, efficient, coherent, and follow due process with a long list. So for business intelligence, if a business is going to put the things in place to manage your data, they should have a warehouse that is integrated, that gives reports, that allows good analyzing by the persons in the firm, and there are 2 kind of users. There are the power users and the casual users. And there are different kinds of ways to do that: Hadoop, OLAP, and analytics. And there are various vendors and consulting firms that offer products. So there are 6 elements in the business environment: the data, the infrastructure, the analytics toolkit, the users, the delivery platform, which you mentioned these already, management, systems, decision support systems, and executive support systems, and then the user interface. So this is on this particular, the same thing we just did is on this picture. So we have data, and there's lots of data. So there can be data from, depending on the business, different businesses have different data where it comes from everywhere from call centers, websites, mobile devices, social media, stores, suppliers, and the government. So lots of data that goes into all the ways that a business stores the data, databases, data warehouses, data marts, and analytical platforms. And then the business decides, you don't have to use all of these, what analytical tool sets that they're going to use in order to basically analyze that data. And then for the users who are going to analyze the data, they have to figure out, given the business strategy, how are they going to use this data a little bit to usually they want to analyze the performance of the business. We're going to show in a second the balance scorecard that is used more and more in many businesses, and also forecast what they expect to be happening in the company. And so typically you use all of these three platforms. We had already said it earlier. So the management information systems is used by the operational managers. The decision support systems are used by the middle managers, and the executive support systems are used by the top managers. And so you have many different user interface that shows essentially what comes from those platforms. And in the past, it used to be only static reports. Now we have all kind of visual dashboards, scorecards, things on mobile, things on social media, so that there's so many interfaces that show the results of things that can help people make the decisions. So from the business intelligence, you have production reports that are based on specific parameters that are usually coming from the middle managers and executive managers. They have dashboards that give quick overviews of the key elements that a senior manager wants. And then you're always going to be the option to do specific queries. So ad hoc just means that you say, oh, I want to know about this now. And then you can, even as a non-technical person, make requests for specific subset of data based on what is needed in the business from the perspective of the decision maker. And there are ways to allow the middle and senior managers, in fact, you can even with operational managers, to drill down to get more information. Because remember, if you go back to this as an example, to go back to the context, if you saw here, operational managers are making decisions. And so typically they're all structured. But if it is that the operational manager wants to be talking to the middle manager, that maybe we need to change some of these rules. But usually the operational manager just expected us to say, hey, here are the rules, follow the rules, no question asked. But obviously, the way we're going now, if you read all the cases and how real world works, real good businesses are wanting all people to be able to say, how can the business function better? So if you actually allow middle managers and even who are not managers to drill down, they can make suggestions as to how the business could work better based on the data. And so based on really excellent business intelligence, you can make forecasts and come up with various scenarios and compare the results with those scenarios so that you can say what is likely to be best for the business. So remember, we had said that there are a number of different business functional areas, but each of them would have basic reports. So in sales, you would have forecast, performance, cross-selling. Cross-selling is where if like we have 3 or 4 different kind of products, it's possible that one product you sell sells well with another product. And so you can say, okay, is there any customers that tend to buy 2 things at the same time? And then based on that, you then decide that you're going to make an effort to do sales that is cross areas that don't obviously go together. So for example, they found that when they look at supermarkets, people are coming to the cash register bringing items that they didn't normally think makes sense together. And so they literally started changing how the supermarket floors were designed based on how people were buying, to make it more likely that people were actually buying things that they didn't think normally would. So supermarkets are all about trying to figure out how to do marketing and sales so that people will buy as much as possible. Looking at what is the cycle times in a particular business. So with call center, you want to look at how can you increase the customer satisfaction, reduce the service costs, resolve all problems the customer have, and reduce the churn rate. Remember, churn rate is just the concept that some people, every business in the world are going to lose some customers. You want to have the churn rate as low as possible, and you have it as low as possible if the service center operates well. So looking at what's happening within services is really important. Marketing is all about getting new customers as well as attracting existing customers to buy more products. And so you want to look for each particular type of marketing campaign, how effective each of them are, which of them lead to loyalty, which actually leads to attrition. Attrition is when people leave the business. And so you want to look at an analysis of what is happening in the quote unquote market basket. You have 3 different marketing campaigns, which one is working the best. With procurement, you want to look at how the business is spending money, which contracts are best for the business, which suppliers are performing as expected. Because remember, if you're buying from a supplier and they're coming in late, that may put off the business and you're not doing, and you're paying them on time what you're planning to put. All of that, those things should be evaluated so that the business is going to be not wasting money or time and essentially increasing customer satisfaction. In terms of supply chain, remember supply chain is a term that means how you get the things that the company wants all the way to the users. So sometimes there's a backlog. Sometimes there's an issue with fulfillment status. People order, but it takes a long time to come in. And so since most businesses, there is some time between when order, that's including the customer, or when you order from the supplier and when it's paid, you want to have the time that you pay and the time you get the goods to be as, you want as much time between when you get the good and when you have to pay the good to be as much as possible. So all of this needs to be analyzed as well. The financials needs to be analyzed so that the cash flow in the business is good and profitability is high. And then there needs to also look at the human resources, the people in the company, are they being productive if those things can be measured? Sometimes measuring employee productivity is problematic. For example, let's take my kind of job. How do you measure whether educator, not me in particular, is productive? However, there are other people who work here, you could probably measure their productivity or back to their service. So some of the admin staff, you can look at their service quality. Can you look at their productivity? But you can certainly an insurance company, how much people are selling. So it depends on the particular company as to what can you actually measure. So in some places, some of the employees you can measure their productivity, others is not so simple. Clearly, you can look at whether the compensation is related to the bottom line of the company, etc. Whether those people are being retained. And by the way, the reason why retention is important of the workforce, retention means keeping the people in the work because it costs money to hire more people and to orient them to the job. So if you can use production as in information about people to figure out maybe like people where they live is going to make them more likely to be retained organically. If all of that can be useful in deciding who to hire and who, all of that, it could possibly help the business be more successful. So one of the important uses of predictive analytics is to do data mining, statistical analytics, so that you can figure out what are future prediction. So if you can extract data to predict future things, what can you do? You can figure out what are the likely responses to direct marketing campaigns, the best potential customers, obviously the business for credit cards, figure out which customers are at risk, figure out which, like, so myself right now, I don't know which business I'm at risk for. Given that I've had one credit card for a long time, I think it's over 15 years. Like, if another credit card company is going to offer me, I would think that would be something that they would say, reduce risk. But there are actually other variables. They want to look at my salary. They want to look at, I don't know how many more years I have until retirement. The point is, there are a number of variables to look at whether the person is at risk, the age of the person, all kind of things. And all of this will be based on, they have a database of all kind of customers in the past, and so therefore that's how they figure out who's the best customers, who's at-risk customers. Based on the database of previous marketing campaigns, you say, okay, what tends to work? You have changed prices in the past and service in the past, and then you try to predict what's going to happen. So with big data analytics, you are combining the data from social media, transactions, and other kind of machine data, so that you can figure out things related to utility management, transportation operation, healthcare delivery, public safety. So healthcare delivery in COVID, that could mean almost anything. So I don't know. It seems to me that if we're driving the vaccine drive by big data analytics in Jamaica, it seems really unlikely. But even other things, like right now, there's a move towards there's a move towards telehealth, as in seeing a doctor online. If you want to see what is the current, who are the people who are doing that, is this really working, how can we mark it? It's all about like looking at the data and seeing how can we expand that. That's a really big area right now. Public safety. So we have, let me give an example. So in Jamaica, the amount of people who have accidents, it's high. Even during COVID, I kind of believe that they were saying that during the curfew, people are still having accidents. So if we collect this, maybe using a combination of surveillance data, police reports, all of that, we can then start to say, what can we do as a society to reduce accidents? I don't know what we could do. But the point is, unless you actually have the data, start to look at what are the patterns, you can't make any generalizations. In order to do something about any of these things, you have to look at the data, utility management. So whether it's the electrical company, let's stay with power. If we're talking about electricity, we have a very high level of theft in Jamaica of electricity. What are the ways in which we can use that data as in, can we use data to reduce theft, or if we want to stay far from the poor sitting thing to just people who are paying, do we want to have systems that we can remind people who owe their light to pay on time, whatever? Are there ways that we can actually do it so that the utility company will pay more on time? The point is, all of these things can be done in ways that big data can help. Is there ways for transportation to be done? Let's take a simple one now, which is not that simple. So I used to live outside of Jamaica for a short time, but I was studying, it was not short. And I was amazed by the city, in the city of Philadelphia, they have a bus service where the transportation actually goes by the time that the bus says. So you have a time that says the bus is coming at like 38 and I don't remember what neither of those roads were. Anyway, let's just go like let's call it like Broad Street, and the numbers were also, one way was numbers and the other way was names. So let's say it's Broad Street and 38. If the thing said it come at 8:51, at 8:51 or 8:50 the bus was there. And if it was too early, it would wait for another minute until it went on. The point is, for this to work in Jamaica, I don't know how well it can work, but if you're going to do that, it would be, let's do some kind of study. Let's see if there's some way to make some predictions to start putting in place, maybe on the routes that are more, traffic is like, consistent, putting in places where we could actually have like predictable city transportation, things that people would be more likely to not take their cars, and that would actually reduce the, sorry if you all don't know, the cost of petroleum in Jamaica is really high. And people were to take the bus, it would actually reduce our costs. So all of these things are real big decisions, and if these things work better, we actually have a better country. In addition to that, we can have operational intelligence. So day-to-day decision making, if the data is being collected, the businesses can make real-time decisions based on the data right there. So, for example, if you have a company that is having sensors in, this one here says truck trained industrial systems. And let me move this one to, I remember once a presentation by Jamaica Brothers Group, they came to UTEP and was talking, and they actually, at the time, this was like pre-COVID, were actually using, because they were having theft of chickens, they actually were like literally having people, the trucks being weighed, and then when they got to the new destination, they weighed it again, so that they could actually see, and they were also tracking it with a GIS system. They were tracking both by weight as well as location to see what was happening, so they could cut down on theft, as well as people, as in the theft would cut down both because they knew where the truck was, as well as if the and they would weigh at each major location across Jamaica. They could cut down on the likelihood. And that's not a big, those are not big operational intelligence issues. It just is a big investment. So the investment to put those things in place, and they said that it led to better reduction in theft. And so if you have that in place, you can have huge streams of data that can lead to better decision making. So by doing that, they could identify the truck drivers who are being corrupt. And you can have, as I said earlier, location analytics that you can get. So everything from mobile phone sensors, maps that can give you information. So utility companies like telecommunication companies, the water companies, the electricity companies can view customer costs at postal location. So there might be some correlation between where you live and how much it costs. Some things I think might cost more in the hills. Not sure what other things, but the point is you can look at it once you have the data. And so the decision makers can visualize if there are problems based on that. So with telecom, we know that tend to be, as you go up in the hills, the cell tower is worse. And if they have all of that, and with the complaints, they could figure out where they should probably put in more cell towers, and also make a question as to which places it makes sense. Because at the end of it, these companies are all about making money. So some places, even though it might improve customer service, if it's not cost effective, they may not do it. But its point is, if you use this, you can make some intelligent decisions. With business intelligence, you actually have two groups of people. You have the power users and the casual users. So you want to not only focus on the power users. So you actually want to make sure that you have intelligent systems that are for the developers, the super users, the business analysts, and analytical models in the company. But you also want to do it so that the people in the business will actually use it. So you're going to have it for customers, operational employees, senior managers, business analysts, and a really good business intelligence system will be created for all these groups of people, depending on the company. Every company is going to be different as to what exactly is needed. So as we were saying earlier, DSS are computer systems used for semi-structured decisions, and it's typically used for super users who are going to create their own reports, who are going to perform what if analysis. So if this happens, then that. Looking at sensitivity, so it's like a extra step to what if analysis. You can do that in a reverse way. You can have pivot tables to say 3 or more dimension, what is likely to happen. So here's an example of a sensitivity analysis. So here we have the total fixed costs, the variable cost per unit, average sale price, contribution margin, and break-even point. For those who don't know, break-even point is you need to sell at 1,357. So break-even point is the amount that you need to sell before you, when your income increase is equal to your cost. So when you sell one item above the break-even, then you start to make a profit. So this means that the break-even is when you sell 1,357, the expenses are equal to the income. So this now shows at this amount for depending on the cost per unit and depending on how many additional
Excuse me, miss.
sales you have.
Are
Somebody
we
saying
supposed
something?
to be seeing our screen?
I'm not sharing screen.
Okay.
I thought I was sharing screen. So hold on, all this time I'm not sharing the screen?
No, miss, you're not seeing anything.
Oh. So wait, all this time in the whole class I'm not sharing a screen and you guys not telling me?
We thought
Wow.
it was a straight discussion, to be honest. That's what I thought.
No, I'm actually sharing a screen. Wow. From the beginning. Yeah, so I'm actually going through this entire thing. So even like for example, when I was talking about this, I was saying like I actually was talking about this and saying this was the 12 times the so the decision was 12 times per month times 100, which get the 1.2 million. So right at the beginning of class, I was saying that for different decisions, there are different kinds of decisions that people make per year that led to different amounts of value for the customer, not for the customer, for the business. And when I went into types of managers, I was saying we did this before. And when I was going through the examples, it was on the screen, but I didn't realize that you weren't seeing the screen because I'm seeing the screen. And I forgot to look. Yes, share screen wasn't shown. So I was showing this, and this was the diagram that we showed. People are still coming in. Right, and I was showing that the screen and the screen is almost the same. And by the way, this is actually on the site. It's on the site, so you could actually go on the Moodle site and download it. And I was showing you this process. What about you all were seeing? And I went through this example. Yeah, anyway. And we were just here just a while ago. We were talking about what the power users and the casual users. Sorry about that. And we're I think we just passed here. So we're talking about decision support systems. And I was saying that, as we know, decision support systems are the semi-structured, the software that help with semi-structured decisions, which are typically used by super users, as in people with power to decide something, usually. And then I was talking about, I see why you're asking me, huh? Right, so I was talking about this actual number. So I was saying, hopefully you all know from the general knowledge that break even, this is not on the screen, break even is where you have a balance between what the amount of sales is, not the amount, the value of sales in dollars is equal to the expenses in dollars. When those are equal, it's called break even. So I was saying here are variable costs. So the variable cost would mean that as the cost per unit changes, the actual sale price could change so that the actual break even is going to change. So break even could change depending on what the variable cost is and what the sale price is. So, there is actually a break even with this particular thing. But if you change what the cost is per unit and you change what the sale price is, there's different break even points. This is called sensitivity analysis. Hopefully you get the general gist of it. So you can do all kind of fancy things once you have software. It's basically what if. And this is a pivot table where you say, here are all this data we have. Obviously, this is a spreadsheet program that you're all very familiar with. The title is right there. And you can now select which fields you want. And then we're going to, as you see on the next screen, I'm not even showing the screen. You can then come up with that, like some information, then like look at that data in order to make a decision. So you can basically extract from the entire data set and get the information you need to make a decision. So here, for example, they show that they're the, what's this, the region and web and grand total. I'm not sure what this web is, but the point is they've extracted some data based on checking some things in this pivot table. And by the way, if you want to learn, it's not that hard to learn how to use pivot tables in Excel. So for senior managers, they are going to use executive support sessions, and they typically use these days balanced scorecard method. So there are 4 elements: the financial, the business process, the customer, and the learning and growth. Now the financial is obvious because at the end of the bottom line, the business wants to make money. The business process, you want to have the business process be as efficient as possible. The customer needs to be satisfied, and for business to do really well, there needs to be learning and growth in a company. And so there are what is called key performance indicators to measure each of these dimensions. So here are some of the dimensions for each of these 4 parts on the balance scorecard. So for finance, cash flow, return on investment, the return on capital, return on equity. For business processes, you have things like number of activities, how long each one takes, the accident ratios, the resource efficiency, equipment downtime, learning and growth, investment rate, internal promotions, employee turnover, gender ratio. And then customers, alternatives is obvious, the quality, performance, customer satisfaction, etc. So the point is every firm come with these various things, and then you can measure them in order to make decisions. That's the way forward. So in a business performance management, you're going to have methods based on the firm strategy, and then you're going to use these strategies to come up with operational targets. And so our executive support system includes both the internal with our DSS. It's not always, it's typically only internal data, but there are exceptions. But typically it's internal, but in a DSS, not a DSS, in an executive support system, it's always internal plus external, because external must include things like what's happening in the industry, not just within the firm, so that you have like the full picture. And then you have also some firms use group decision support systems, which facilitate solving of unstructured problems. And you're able to use conference rooms, have meeting sites that will have people interacting with each other. And in these group support systems, you can either do it privately or publicly, where people are going to be making notes and making polls so that they can store ideas and make decisions as the firm's culture permits. And then there are a whole lot of artificial intelligence techniques, which are out of class time to really talk about at great length. So intelligent techniques can allow people to capture knowledge, look for patterns in large amount of data, so you can come up with solutions to things that humans typically can't figure out by themselves. So some of the options are machine learning, neural networks, genetic algorithms, which are all AI techniques. So a neural network that is trying to figure out whether a credit card purchase is likely to be fraudulent could be based on the person's age, income, purchase history, because the purchase is an average purchase size, and then when the thing is swiped to the store, it just automatically says, yes, this is likely to be valid or invalid. If it's invalid, it just says either not approved or asks the business to call for the customer to do some additional verification. I'll never forget the first time this ever happened to me when I was very young. I had gone on a shopping spree in the US. After my first time job, I was maybe working 1 year. At some point, they called and they said I was at the store. I needed to talk, and I was very angry. And they said, "You've been on a shopping spree." So after I actually answered all the questions, and I said yes, but I've been working really hard, and I have the money to pay all of this. It wasn't, shopping spree was not like I had a lot of money, but I decided that I was working too hard and I wanted to buy a lot of small items with my money. But I was basically never using the credit card. And all of a sudden now I'm going from store to store buying whatever I was buying. I don't know anymore now. But the point is, it was because it wasn't at the size, it was my frequency of purchase. Not sure the other things, but certainly my frequency had completely, and purchase history was completely different. And so it flagged that. This example is with chromosomes, and it makes an evaluation. This particular genetic algorithm makes an evaluation of the fitness of each chromosome, and it can say, oh, okay, so you can come up with things like the genetic age. I was just watching yesterday a really intriguing video about there are people who believe, I have a professor in this area who believes that not only can we maybe slow down aging, that maybe soon we'll be able to reverse aging. I don't know. What long and short is there are ways to use genetic algorithms to try to figure out the fitness of each chromosome in not only in rats, maybe very soon in humans. And then we can use AI techniques for intelligent agents that can do repetitive tasks. Natural language processing can figure out what are in text commands, process voice, can translate computer vision systems that can look at what's happening and translate what's happening in the real world. And so, for example, Procter & Gamble supply chain network, you could have suppliers that can't deliver on time, and so you have agents, AI agent bots that can figure out who is alternative suppliers so that they can supply on time. And then you have retail stores that are monitoring what's happening in the stores and realizing that, oh, they need to replenish these things. And then the distributors who, if the distributor is not working well, you can find somebody who is, is distributing from the supplier to the retail store, not doing what they need, they can find somebody alternative. So part of that can be done by intelligent agents. We also can use robotics that can substitute for humans. So that's, for example, done in Amazon. They use robots to move some of their goods in their large warehouses, for example. Expert systems is where you interview an expert or a series of experts in order to capture their expertise, in order to come up with a set of rules. And that would be called a knowledge base, so that you can come up with an inference engine that can figure out what a human expert would do. So here's an example of rules in an expert system. This one is rather simple. So if it is that you want to figure out if somebody should get a mortgage, if their income is more than $50,000, you ask about their car payments. And if the car payments is less than that. So it's going through all of these things to try to figure out if we should give them credit, to ask about their car payments and their mortgage payments and all of this, to decide whether we should grant them which type of level of thing. And that is based on asking the person who's been doing this over time. And clearly you can do an expert system for medicine, for anybody who's an expert in any particular area. And clearly some experts, as I mentioned medicine, some areas of medicine expert systems are better for than others, but some are more rule-based than others. And then knowledge management, actually we're out of time, yeah. Knowledge management, let me see if anybody's still here. I think I should leave this till next time, because it's all of this. And way over time, yeah, I think we'll leave that till next time. We still have 24 people. Guys, I didn't know, you didn't realize that I was talking